Check, check.
There we go. Unless you want the headset one.
No, this is good. All right. So I hope y'all have been having a good weekend so far. Excellent. We are highlighting missions today, in particular an organization called the Timothy Initiative. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about them, and you'll also hear about them in the service. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to come and speak with y'all. Missions is a passion of mine, and I have history with that, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And it's really important for us to keep a global mindset. It's easy to get caught up in our lives here in the United States and all that's going on and forget that there are billions of people on this planet. And, only a small chunk of the people on Earth live in this country. The vast majority of them live elsewhere, and the vast majority of them live in very difficult circumstances. And billions of them live without the truth. There are probably, it estimated about 3 billion people on Earth today who have never heard about Jesus, who've never heard the truth. And it seems so commonplace for us because we grew up with it. We have such great access to the Bible here. A lot of you guys have probably been in church since you were babies, but it's just not the case for so many people around the world. And so the Timothy Initiative is doing a lot of great work toward taking the gospel to people who don't have it and planting churches as well. So like I say, I'm going to talk about them a little bit at the end, but I want to start off with telling you all about my background. And let me mention, we do have the VR experience out here set up, and I know a few of y'all signed up. I think Poker Girls there and William, I think y'all were on docket, so if you want to go out there and do it, you can. We have 7 spots, 7 headsets, so anyone who wants to step out and do the VR, feel free to jump out there while I'm talking and then come back on in. It takes about 10 minutes to run through it, so encourage you to do that. If you don't want to do it right now, there may be opportunity this afternoon. We are doing that for 2 hours this afternoon, and we probably still have some slots available there, so you may be able to come back and check that out later as well. All right, well, like I say, I want to tell y'all a little bit about my background, in case I doubt any of you know this, or very few of you know it, but I used to be a missionary. It wasn't a real long time, and I'll talk about that. But I used to be a missionary in India, and so that's part of why I have this job now. It's kind of a strange combination, right? You don't go to many churches where someone is the children's and missions pastor. It's a weird combo, but it fits for me because what I did in the mission field is children's ministry. And then I've been doing children's ministry even before that, and when I came back to the States, and then here about a year ago, Pastor John, talked to me about taking on missions as well, because again, it fits with my history. So, but before I get to the mission specific stuff, I want to tell you a little bit about my whole story, my whole life. I'm gonna tell you my entire life in 10 minutes. But who in here has met my wife, Lily? Who knows my wife, Lily? Raise your hand. Okay, so several of you. Well, did you know we started dating toward the end of college, and then have gone on from there. So that was 2005 when we started dating. And next one, one back. Okay, and then so in 2005 we started dating, and then in 2006 we got married, and you can see there that's some interesting garb, some interesting clothes we have on, don't you think? Does that look like traditional wedding clothes? Not United States wedding clothes, but that is traditional Indian wedding clothes. So even at that time, we were already looking at India, looking to go to India as missionaries, even when we got married. Although we did not leave, in 2006. That was just when we got married, but we were already thinking about it and already making some preparations for it. So we decided to do our wedding wearing Indian clothes. Now it wasn't like a super Indian-esque wedding. We just wore that. In fact, it wasn't really traditional at all. We got married outside in a gazebo in Flower Mound. We didn't even get married in a church. So Lily likes to really mix it up. She's a rebel at heart, and she likes to do things different if she can. So she thought that'd be really different. And we got married on a Tuesday, so that was also very different. And hardly anybody showed up, but we were fine with that. So anyway, so there's that. All right, next one. So after we get married, what usually comes after that? Children, right? So that is a picture of Caden when he was a baby. He approved these pictures. My kids have approved these pictures, but you can still rib them about it later. So Caden was our first, and there he is. I don't know, maybe 1 year old there or something like that. And so we started off having kids and did that whole deal, and that actually kind of delayed us getting in the mission field. Going in the mission field is complicated, as you can imagine. And so we started having kids pretty much right off the bat, and it complicated things and whatnot. But it was good, of course. We were so glad to have the kids, and so excited, and God was really blessing us. And so, we went on His timing. So next one. So this is a picture of us about the time we were going to leave. So 2012 is when we went in the mission field. And by then we had 3 kids. So there's Caden, Isaiah, and Jesselyn. And y'all know them. And so that's a picture that we used for our support raising process. That's one of the ones we used. So there we were, about 6 years into it there. And next one. So then in 2012, we headed off to India. And specifically, we were in the southwest part of India. So if you see on the map there at the very bottom, the little skinny state that's on the southwest, that's called Kerala, and that's where we went. So we headed there in 2012. And next one. There's a picture of them in India next to an elephant statue. Isaiah is not happy about being in that picture. And Caden was holding onto the elephant for stability. I don't know what he was doing there. But so that's a shot of us there in India. Next one. There's some more there. So the boys, they connected really well with the Indian kids quickly. They loved it. That boy there in both those bottom pictures is Joel. His name is Joel, and he really took to our kids. And it's funny because so I went to India in 2009 on a short trip to kind of check it out, as part of our process. I was there for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I met him. I met Joel while I was there in 2009, and then we came back in 2012 and connected with him again. So that was interesting for me to see him having grown up a few years, and then, like I said, he really took to my kids quickly. And that's Jess there in the middle. She was not even a year old when we left, and but she loved it and excited there. You can see the boys in the background. They were trying to kill ants. So we had a lot of ants. There's a lot of ants in India, and we had a lot of ants in our house, and it was a real challenge for us. We were constantly killing ants and mosquitoes as well. We used to get those little mosquito bats, and we would like run them around the beds and stuff, and it just pop, 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 pop. I mean, there was tons of them, tons of mosquitoes, even in the house. So it was pretty crazy. We were like constantly bitten. All right, so next one. We worked with some great people while we were there. So in the top left, that is Sally and Babu George. They were our field directors. And so we had known them for several years. They're Indian, as you can see, but had come to the States for Babu to go to Dallas Theological Seminary. And so they had been here for several years doing that and had a couple of kids while they were here, and then eventually got connected with the same sending agency that we went through, which is the one connected to Denton Bible Church. And so they had gone back to India as missionaries, even though they're from there. So we then joined their team there in India. And the bottom right there is some other folks that we worked with while we were there. So it was really great to do that and connect with those people, and they welcomed us really quickly. All right, next one. So that's just to show you, that's a shot of the house that we lived in while we were there. Those are a bunch of kids coming in for Caden's birthday party. So he had a birthday there, and they we're all coming over for that. So, but you can kind of see the house is, not drastically different from here, but what's the big difference is that they don't have any kind of like central air conditioning or things like that. So the house is all open air. So you try to keep the windows open, keep the air flowing. So that was difficult for us because we're not used to that, right? And so we were really, really beat down by the heat. It lost a lot of weight real quick. So that was interesting. Question, Wayne? Yeah, so I'll talk more about that. So we left in 2012, right? And our thought was that we would live in India the rest of our lives. That was our plan. That was the thought. We thought we were moving there permanently. But the way it was set up is that we started with our missions agency in late 2011, and they put us through a year of training. You start off being trained how to be a missionary. For me in particular, they put me through like some seminary type classes. And so then we left in late 2012, and there was a global conference happening in January of 2013. And so the idea was that we would go to India at the end of 2012 and get set up and established and, kind of get things going, and then come back for that global conference, which was here in the United States, and then we would go back. So we did that. Came back for the global conference, never returned. We were not able to go back. There was various reasons for that. Some difficulties. We had one thing that surprised us. One of the reasons that we couldn't go back and that really surprised us is that we drew a ton of attention when we were there. And in South India, it's all dark-skinned Indians mostly, and we really stood out like a sore thumb, as they say, and drew a lot of attention. People would follow us around, try to take pictures of us, want to hold our kids, stuff like that. And so, what's that? Yeah, it's kind of how it felt. It was weird. And so that drew a lot of attention, and we got on a government list, and actually started to become a detriment to their ministry, is what they said. And so they didn't want us to come back to that area. They wanted us to go to a different area of India, and our agency wouldn't support that, and so we weren't allowed to return. And no one expected that, really. They thought it would be good. They were excited for us to come there, do children's ministry, like I said, and it went a lot different, So a lot of times you follow God's leading, and then He changes it. And it, of course, threw us for a loop, and we weren't sure what to do. And so we tried to shift. This is just a quick side note, I guess. We tried to shift gears and go to a different country, stay with our agency, go to a different country. We started looking at going to Mexico, actually. And we worked on that for a while, and we're all set to go down there. And about 2 weeks before we were ready to leave, the field director for that team quit. And they, long story short, they disbanded that whole team. And so then we couldn't go to Mexico. And we're like, what is happening? And then the agency's director called me up, said, I got to meet with you. Met with him. He's like, we've decided we have to drop you. Too many things are happening here, and we got to drop y'all. And so I understood, but still, just one thing after another, we're like, what is happening? So we considered switching to a different agency, but again, long story short, decided that God, seemed to be closing the doors, and so we decided to stay here in the United States and just buy a house and, try to do life here for a while. And it wasn't long after that we came to this church, actually. So we were members here at this church first for a while. And then in the summer of 2018, Pastor John started talking to me about coming on staff here. So, that's how I ended up here. And so it's different than what we expected. I didn't think that I would be doing ministry here in the States, on a church staff. I thought I was going to be a missionary for my whole life, but that's not how it worked out. So you have to live with an open hand, right, and be willing to go as God leads, even if that changes a lot from year to year and looks different than you expect or want. And Lily in particular, she was real devastated by it because she'd actually been going on short-term trips to India for many years before we even got married, and she had a real passion for India and was really excited to be a missionary there. And so for us to not be able to do that in the long run, it was hard. But you know what? Maybe we'll go back in the future. We keep that in mind, that maybe God will let us go back out in the mission field in the future, and we hope maybe that can be true, So, but very excited to be here for now and doing this and serving Him here. And so, yeah. All right, so next slide there. That's a shot of us riding in a rickshaw. That's a common way to get around there in India. It's like a taxi, but it's open air, and it's can't go real fast, but that's fine. You don't need to go fast in India. You can't go fast. There's a ton of people there. It's packed all over the place. And so you ride down the street, and you better keep your hands in, because if you don't, they might get chopped off, because the rickshaws literally come within like that close of each other. I mean, they're just darting all over the place. People are constantly honking. It's like nonstop honking there. They never stop honking. And they're not being rude. They're like letting people know, I'm coming, be aware, I'm here. And so it's real crazy. There's a lot of motorcycles. One time I tried to cross the street and got hit by a motorcycle. Knocked me right off my feet, knocked my sandals down the street. I was just laying there in the middle of the street. And got up, kind of hobbled off to the side, limped down, got my sandal, went in a store, tried to call Lily and be like, I got hit by a motorcycle. And, the guy didn't stop. He just hit me and kept going, And so that was pretty crazy. But you definitely got to watch out and be careful there when it comes to traffic. So, but we rode around in rickshaws and other stuff. So next one. So we did a lot of different kind of ministry while we were there. We were focused on children's ministry, but we had other opportunities. I was able to preach in churches. So this is a shot of me preaching in a church, of course. Had to use a translator. Learning the language there is difficult. It's Sanskrit-based language, so it's a lot different than our language. And it's something that takes you years to pick up. So use a translator to preach in churches. In different places. We were mostly there in Kerala, like I mentioned, but I got to go to some of the other places of India also while we were there, which was nice. Next one. So we also started Bible study in our home. So there we are, some folks there. Taught through the book of Matthew while we were there, and that was a great opportunity to connect more closely with some of them and be able to lead that Bible study. And that's the big thing around the world, is that people don't have access to training. They don't have access to good biblical theology. It's not like here where you can just go to a seminary. There's tons of them to choose from, right? And back in 2012, there wasn't even as many online resources as there are today. So they're really desperate for training and to have their understanding of the Bible enhanced. Next up. So I was also had opportunity to go to schools, which they don't really like. Christianity is not against the law necessarily in India, at least back then it wasn't. Now it's more persecuted, at least because of some government changes. But they still didn't really welcome it. So even though it's not like illegal to be a Christian per se, they don't really welcome it. And so you can't just necessarily go around just preaching Jesus, but we found a way to get into the schools under the premise of teaching them about the United States. So I went there to teach about our country, the country where I'm from, and was able to work in Jesus to that because, it's some of the basis of of why our country started, right? People came here for religious freedom, things like that. So that was a good opportunity that God provided to be able to kind of share the gospel with those kids, not directly, but indirectly. So that I was glad that came about there. All right, next one. So we did, like I said, we did children's ministry. This is a shot of us. We did a class at a church that was on a rooftop, actually. It was interesting. So we would meet up there each Sunday and do children's classes. So we had all the typical kind of stuff, crafts and things like that. We took them through something called the 12 eras of the Bible. I've taught that here in Awana. It breaks down the Bible in 12 pieces, and there's motions and a symbol for each one, kind of help them remember pictures. So we went through that with them, and hopefully they get a better understanding of the whole of Scripture. Understand that it's one book, right? It's 66 books, but it's one book, really. It's one story, and it's one, thing that God's trying to communicate to us. And if we understand the whole of it and how it all connected together, then that makes sense to us. And so that's what we taught them there, one of the things we taught them. All right, next up. So this is a picture of someone being baptized. They have just a little brick area outside that they fill in with water, and everyone gathers around, and they just baptize people there. And you can't really see it, but Caden is down there just behind the guy doing the baptism. He's down there right next to the pool. He wanted to get up next to it and see what was going on. So he was about 5 years old when we were there. So he was always trying to get himself right in the middle of things. All right, next up. All right, so like I say, Lily, the language is difficult to learn, but Lily loves languages. She actually studied as many languages as she could get her hands on when she was in college. They require you to take some language in school and high school and college, things like that, right? But she just went bananas with it. Took a class on like tons of different languages. So, she knows French, Italian, Romanian, I don't even know. You have to ask her what she knows. So she was really excited. We found some books to help us with the language, but you can see it's a lot different, of course, the writing, and then even how you pronounce stuff. They would laugh at us. We would try to speak, and they would all laugh at us because we didn't say it right. So it'd be like somebody, trying to say table, but they say toblo. You'd be like, what are you talking about? So that's how it sounded to them when we would try to say words. We weren't actually saying them clearly at all, but we tried. And fortunately, a lot of people spoke English, but many didn't. And so the communication there was one of the most difficult parts. But Lily loved trying a lot more than I did. I was kind of like, I don't know if I can get this. All right, next up. We also had, interesting food, very delicious stuff, but different than traditional American food. Of course, you can get Indian food here, but this was real Indian food, made in India. So this is a shot of some stuff we had, naan up there in the top right, and some other stuff there. So Lily also, real big on the food stuff. She loved it. She tried everything under the sun. I kind of kept to certain lanes. I would find, okay, I kind of like this. I'm gonna keep eating that. But she would just, anytime we would go somewhere, she'd be like, what have I not tried yet? And she'd try it. So very adventurous, that one. I love her. All right, next up. So like I say, we stayed there for about 3-4 months before we were coming back for that global conference. So this is us returning after our time there in the airport and on the plane. We were fortunate to be able to fly on Emirates Airlines, which was really nice. And they treated, even in the economy coach area, they treated you like you were in first class. They gave you like hot towels. The food was super good. They had a lot of space. It was a really nice airline. So we were glad there because it was, we flew from Dallas to Dubai, which was like 16-17 hour flight. And then we flew from Dubai into India, which is another 4 hours. So it's a lot of time on the plane. It takes about 20 plus hours to do the whole trip. So we were glad to have that little, nice aspect of it. All right. I think that's all. Next slide. I think that's all the pictures and stuff. Yeah. So that's our story. That's my background there. And hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit about that. But I want to shift now to talking about the Timothy Initiative in particular. Like I say, we're highlighting them today. and they are a church planting organization. That's where their focus is. And they have this word that they hold on to called achieve. Their vision is kind of captured in the word achieve, and it stands for a church in every village, everywhere. And so like I told y'all in the beginning, there are a lot of people on this earth that still do not know the truth, and there are a lot of places that don't have a church. And so the Timothy Initiative is trying to put churches in places that don't have one. And since 2007, they have started 200,000 new churches around the world. So God has used them in great capacity, and it's a great opportunity for us to be involved with them and to help them continue that work. Next one. So the way that they do this is that they go to an area and they identify what they call Pauls. Few select men that are really, already solid and grounded in the truth, but that maybe are not, very trained. They don't maybe have a lot of theological knowledge, but they're strong believers and really working for the Lord. And so they identify them as Pauls, and they put them through training, and then they ask the Pauls to identify Timothys to then pass on that training. And so they create this little group of people, about 20 people. And then those Timothys are charged with going out and sharing the gospel and trying to start new churches. And so, like I said, there's 3 billion people who need the gospel, so they continue to do this and replicate these disciples over and over again, and the cycle just continues. The Timothys become Pauls, get their own Timothys, and it just keeps going like that. I think there's one more slide, or maybe a couple. Yeah, so like I say, you can get involved with them, and there's a lot of different ways you can get involved with them. They, of course, need financial support, so that's something that you can do, and we'll talk about that in the service. But there are other ways to get involved. If you go to their website, which is ttiglobal.org, you can find out all the details. But they have this thing called 24/7 prayer, and the way that works is you sign up for a 15-minute prayer slot once a week, and then when that time comes around, say you pick 10 a.m. on Friday. When 10 a.m. on Friday comes around, you pray for 15 minutes for global missions. And they have everybody around the world signing up for all these slots, and they try to get 24/7 coverage. And you can sign up for just a shorter time, like just for like a 1-month commitment or a whole year commitment, or however you want to do it, however long you want to commit to praying at that particular time on that particular day. And they just try to have full coverage, 24/7, 365. So that's one way. Another way you can get involved is to write letters to the people, to those Pauls and to those Timothys. Try to write letters of encouragement, and even to some of the field directors that they have out there that work directly for TTI. So you can, write them letters of encouragement, say that you're praying for them, that you're thankful that God's using them in these ways, and they really appreciate that. TTI also tries to be active in social media. So if you're a big social media person and have some skills there, you can get involved in helping them with their social media presence and trying to, further things that way also. And there's other opportunities too. If you go to the website, you can see. And that last slide there, I wanted to have. So this is what we're going to talk about in the service, it's called the Church Planners Circle. And that is, if you join the Church Planners Circle, that means you're joining the financial support team. So the way they have it structured is that if you give $34 a month, that's about $400 over the course of the year. And that's what they historically have estimated it costs to start a church is $400. $400 will start a church, right? And so if you do that $34 a month for a year, then you've essentially planted a church that year. Does that make sense to y'all? Yeah. So it's really not much, right? That's not a whole lot of money, and you can plant a church every single year. And if you can afford more, you can plant even more churches. So like I said, they've planted over 200,000 churches since 2007. And they were excited to hit that mark, that God let them do that many. And they hope to do another 200,000 much faster because they have a lot of momentum now. So they think they can plant another 200,000 churches, I think, within like the next 5 years. So it took them, almost 20 to do the first 200. But they have so much momentum now that they feel like they can do another 200, in a lot shorter time, as God provides. So very good. Y'all have any questions? Nope, no questions? Okay. Well, that's all I have for you. If you haven't done the VR, there's probably going to be opportunity for that, and Kyle may have more. I don't know.